Welcome back to the Many Toys Of, and allow me to introduce Dino-Cember. Every Many Toys Of episode in December is going to feature characters that are at least associated with dinosaurs or prehistoric creatures. And what better way to start a month like that off than with one of the original Dinobots. It is time for the Many Toys of Sludge. Before we get started, a big thank you to JD Raindrop YT, Maybe Concave, Reptosaurus King, and Captain Biffle. Thank you all so much for recommending the Forgotten Dinobot. Sludge breaks my heart. I mean, he was one of the original 3 Dinobots. He was there with Grimlock and Slug in their very first episode. And yet he got totally supplanted by the other 2, the newbies, Snarl and Swoop. And we're still, out of the core 5, Sludge is easily the least likely to appear in media. He was not given that much characterization in G1. Seriously, when Megatron is listing off the great weaknesses of the Dinobots, all he can manage to say about Sludge is that Sludge is dumb. And I hate to say it, in the G1 cartoon, the Dinobots aren't exactly a team of geniuses. They're all dumb. So if your characteristic is you are the dumb one, amongst a group of dumb ones, what personality can you really have? Now granted, in G1, Sludge is supposed to be one of the nicer Dinobots, not as nice as Swoop, but at least nicer and easier to work with. But he's also a follower. Even though he might be nicer on his own, as soon as Grimlock or Snarl or Slug say something, he will fall in line every single time. He was never given that much opportunity to branch out, to find his own niche. Whereas Grimlock, Swoop, Snarl, and Slug all became superstars in their own way, Sludge was just the also-ran. He'd be like the Pete Best, but unlike Pete Best, Sludge actually got to stick around and watch as his bandmates became superstars, all while he stayed in the shadow. The most memorable thing about him is when Devastator made his eyes pop out. For where the media failed him, Sludge's toy was a standout. Coming out in 1985, I still really enjoy Sludge's G1 toy. His proportions might look a little bit off. I know he has big old booties, but I do enjoy how big his lower legs are. He's supposed to be a giant amongst giants. He is a little bit of a plodding simpleton, so giving him those big old feet, it just helps recontextualize that he is a little bit clumsy and goofy. That said, his transformation is really well done, and I adore his Brontosaurus mode. I think it is one of, if not the single best dino modes of the G1 Dinobots. I'm sorry, this is just the latent Land Before Time fan in me. I have a soft spot for long necks, and Sludge has a long neck. And in robot mode, he can hold his own. He has good accessories, good paint, good sculpting. But I also want to point this out. Sludge is the only one that doesn't have iconic design elements or kibble. Grimlock has a very unique head design compared to the other Dinobots. Swoop has his wings, Slug has his horns, Snarl has the tail split over his shoulders. Sludge, in comparison, looks like the most generic of the robot modes. Only in Dino mode does he really stand out. Sludge would pick up a few new toys in 1986. For instance, he was released in Takara Tomy markets. A decoy of Sludge would also be released in the Cybertron Hero Collection 9 multipack. 1 year later in 1987, you'd be able to get the decoy of Sludge packed in with the Throttlebots, the Aerialbots, the Protectobots, or the Technobots. Come 1991, Sludge would be released in the European exclusive Classics line. To bring Sludge's G1 career to a close, he would have had one final release in 1992, as a Melloway item in the Operation Combination promotion only in Takara Tomy markets. Sludge completely skipped over the Beast era proper, though did return in 2003 using a Beast Wars era mold, because in the Dinobots line you could have gotten Sludge that was a redeco of the Beast Wars Neo Sling. This is an incredibly fun toy. I love how his fin can turn into a Venus flytrap. It's also a pretty good shield in robot mode. I will say there's nothing here that connects it to the G1 Sludge, but you know, at least he got a toy. It's gonna be a while before his next one. How long is a while? About 11 years until 2014. But why don't we just go ahead and pump the brakes and go see what third party did. I'm sorry, this isn't gonna be that long a video. The first third party Sludge I remember coming across was the Toy World version of the guy. And he's really well done. Again, I prefer the Brontosaurus mode. I just think it has more personality than his robot mode. But even the robot mode is very well articulated and sculpted and painted. It's a solid toy. The real reason that this guy is important, though, is because the Toy World Dinobots were some of the first Dinobots to be able to combine. And Sludge holds his own as a decent limb. I'd argue that he does a better job of it than Snarl or Slug do. This is going to be a rarity for me. I know I usually am not a big fan of fans' toys, but their Sludge is an actual work of art. I love how it turned out. It is a very fun, very playable toy with a great transformation and looks perfect in both modes. Of course, if you want something completely different, there's Kang and their version of Sludge. And I love what they did here. Allowing the Brontosaurus head to effectively become a massive fifth limb, a weapon or something that you could hide away, is really cool. It reminds me a little bit of how Beast Wars Transmetal 2 Megatron has the tail on the back of his head, and it can become a weapon if you want to use it that way. But I'll also point out, if you like this design, you have options. You get him the Masterpiece scale, the Legend scale, the Chug scale, and all of them are very well made, well painted, well sculpted. Granted, it's the most different Sludge has ever looked, but it's still a very well done toy. I am going to say this though, if you just want a big set of Dinobots, go check out Giga Power. Giga Power made the biggest Dinobots on the market, and they look perfect for the Sunbow designs. I love all 5 of them. Admittedly, I do think Sludge is the weakest one. Again, Sludge's robot mode just isn't that interesting, but it's still a massive, weighty figure. Here's something weird. Planet X has done a Fall of Cybertron Sludge. Now, to be fair, Sludge did have a design in the game, but we only saw it as a corpse. I say that, I know he came back in the comics. Again, this just isn't that interesting to me, though. Granted, I'm not big on any of the Fall of Cybertron Dinobots except for Grimlock, but Sludge especially just looks a little bit bland to my eye. Of course, we always have to go into Legend Scale. And in Legend Scale, you can get the Magic Square Sludge. This looks very much like his Sunbow design and would fit in with their other Dinobots. That said, I very much prefer the New Age Sludge. He just looks a little bit better to my eye, and you have so many options. You can get the Sunbow version, the Marvel version, the toy version. They even did a Shattered Glass Sludge. That's pretty nice. To end it on the one Sludge that isn't a dinosaur, Iron Factory gave us the Asura Knights. And the Asura Knights are supposed to be the Dinobots in their War Within bodies, meaning that this is their Cybertronian pre-dino forms. Sludge here turns into a tank. And I don't know, I'm just kind of glad that there is a Sludge out there that is trying to do something that isn't a dinosaur. Look, it's weird to me that this name has so few uses, and yet they are all still connected to the same guy. You'd assume there'd be a name dump around here somewhere, right? But no, just that sling repaint. What dynasty, though? There's nothing for Sludge. He doesn't get to appear in things. He doesn't get to do things. And when he does show up, he's just with the other Dinobots. That said, the Dinobots make money, especially in 2014. So finally, in 2014, nearly 30 years after he was first introduced, we finally got to get some cool Sludge stuff again. You could get the Loyal Subject Sludge. Granted, it's just a Loyal Subjects figure, but at least it's something. But what was an even bigger deal was the Age of Extinction Slog. Now, just like Slag and Swoop, Sludge had to change his name to Slog. And it's not a very sexy name, but, he is a little bit slow, so why not call him a slog? It's a bit of a slog to get through his stories, I guess. But at least he showed up on screen, right? Right? And the toy's not that great. I'm sorry, it's so boring. It's just gray and red. At least with the other Hasbro Age of Extinction Dinobots, they were all given Super Sentai-esque colors. Slog just looks a bit drab. Of course, you could have always gotten the Amazon exclusive G1 Slog. He's pretty cool looking. And hey, they did all the Dinobots in G1 colors, right? Where's the rest of them? The other 4 got to be in a San Diego Comic-Con pack. Slog was the only one omitted, which is why he had to be an Amazon exclusive. Michael Bay, are you telling me that the Brontosaurus couldn't even get into the goddamn box set? But just because everyone in this world is on crazy pills except for me, you could have also gotten the Dinobots Unleashed 5-pack with Slog, Scorn, Slug, Strafe, and Grimlock, and they're all screen accurate. Slog wasn't on the goddamn screen! He's not in the movie! What do you mean screen accurate? At the very least, Sludge would get a couple more toys in 2015. The Slog mold was reused in the Platinum Edition Dinobots line, and even though this is an Age of Extinction toy, it is technically supposed to be G1 Sludge. Sludge was also included in the Creon class of 85. Oh, so he can get into this San Diego Comic-Con box set, but the last year's box set, the one centered around the Dinobots? Nah, Sludge can't make it into that one, Chief. Hopefully Sludge at least got some royalties from those action figures, because he didn't get any work again until 2018. And in 2018, he appeared in the Power of the Primes toy line. And he's fine. The Power of the Primes Dinobots are real shoddy. At this point, a lot of the Combinowars molds were starting to get real loose. And even though these guys were new, they also felt very wibbly in hand. Sludge was easily better than Slug, and probably better than Snarl and Swoop. I'd go so far as to say he might have been the best Dinobot out of these 5. But again, Sludge is the boring one. When he's the best feeling toy, you've messed up the Dinobots. I hate to say it. At the very least, he's a good limb for Volcanicus, but if you're like me and don't really care about Volcanicus and just want a good Dinobots, that doesn't really matter all that much. 2021 would be a treasure trove for Sludge, with a whole 3 new toys. He was in the Generation Selects Volcanicus gift set, giving the Power of the Prime Sludge the most cartoon-accurate deco he'd ever receive. There was also the Dinobot Adventures Sludge. This is a very tiny redeco of the Mini Dino Heatwave from Rescue Bots. And even though Sludge looks a little bit weird with a firefighter helmet, I'm not going to say he can't wear it. He's a good boy. But the big deal was that Sludge was going to reappear on television for the first time since G1 in the Cyberverse cartoon, where he was the most forgettable Dinobot again. The joke here was that out of the 4 Dinobots that met up with Grimlock, Swoop was the only smart one. And she was a genius. But Snarl, Slug, and Sludge were all 3 morons. And when Sludge's personality is he's the dumb one in a group of dumb ones, you start to see how history repeats itself. At the very least, the Cyberverse Ultra Class Sludge is a very good toy. Especially for how simple it is, it has a ton of dynamic motion, good articulation, solid enough colors, a very fun transformation, and an acceptable dino mode. This was a wonderful Cyberverse toy, but it's okay. In 2022, we'd get the Studio Series Sludge, and all the Studio Series Dinobots were amazing, right? Well, they were. They were all very, very fun, but Sludge is probably the worst one. He is very floppy, especially in his knees. Unfortunately, this was a figure that was still having to deal with the production setbacks from the pandemic, and quality control just hadn't fully kicked back in yet, leading to Sludge having more than a few issues. And moreover, Sludge just isn't that interesting. Again, Grimlock has the character. Swoop has the unique colors and the wings. Slug and Snarl have the unique silhouettes. Sludge continues to just be the generic Dinobot. Still a good toy, but nobody's pick for the best. But hey, in 2023, there was the Legacy Sludge. I really don't like the Legacy Core Class Dinobots. They all have so much kibble, and I don't like Volcanicus. Just give me tiny, solid Dinobots. I don't need Sludge with a massive kilt. But you want to know something? I think 2 of Sludge's best toys ever came out this year in 2025. Because we got 2 Galaxy versions of the boy. You got the robot mode, which is very solid, looks just like he should. And then you got the Dino mode. And look at this! The Dino mode actually has the eyes pop out! Because the most memorable thing about Sludge is Devastator making his eyeballs pop out. Oh no. And that's it. Sludge. He's not been able to escape G1. He's not been able to escape that 1 second from the movie. Think about that. The eyes popping out? That's like 4 frames of animation. That's his moment. That's the moment that we go back to when we think of the highlights of Sludge's career. He's been there for 40 years, and that's his moment. Eyeballs popping out in a Looney Tunes-ass segment of a movie. A movie that financially bombed. Like, don't get me wrong, the G1 movie is very important for all the things it set up for the franchise, but if we're just talking about in the era of 1986, that movie did not do well. And that's Sludge's breakout moment. All the other Dinobots have something. Grimlock is an eternal A-lister. Swoop is the fan favorite Dinobot. Snarl got to show up in animated, and he has so many name dumps. And then you got Slug, who was a superstar in IDW, and is one of my personal favorite designs in the entire franchise. Sludge doesn't have anything. Think about this. He's the only one that doesn't have any type of legacy continuation in animated. Because even though we only got the Triceratops was named Snarl, and the robot mode looked more like G1 Snarl. That was effectively a combination of Slug and Snarl to get them both in the show. But there was nothing for Sludge. There was never an attempt to bring Sludge forward until we get to the late 2010s, where everything from G1 needs to make a comeback, and even characters like Sure Shot and Venom can get toys now. That's when Sludge returns in Cyberverse, and even there, he's just another Dinobot. I feel so bad for him. I want you to think about this. The Dinobots are basically the Autobot subgroup. No one else comes close to them in popularity. The Dinobots might be the most popular subgroup of them all. Who compares to them? The Seekers and the Constructicons? Maybe? Maybe? The Dinobots by themselves sell video games, sell toy lines. The Dinobots are the eternal A-listers, the eternal money makers. And Sludge has never been able to capitalize on any of that fame. In G1, in the Beast era, in the Unicron trilogy, in the movies, nothing. Nothing for Sludge. Nothing for him. And he was one of the first 3. Swoop and Snarl have supplanted him. Why? Why has Sludge not been given any form of spotlight? Why has he never been able to do anything? Why isn't there a story about Sludge being a nice giant? I feel so bad for a dumb Brontosaurus, because the single moment that he had to stand out, the moment that everyone thinks about when his name comes up, it isn't a speech, it isn't a cool fight, it isn't a funny line, it's his eyeballs popping out. But guys, I'll ask you, which was your favorite Sludge, and is there a Sludge you're trying to track down right now? Dinocember is going to be the entire month. Every single episode is going to be a dinosaur-related character. That said, I'm only going to include one more Dinobot this month, and you're just going to have to stay tuned to find out who it is. And you should also know, guys, if you'd like to support me or the show, I'm on Patreon. $1 will allow you to get access to my Discord server, Moonbase1. $5 will allow you to watch videos early and download videos directly from me, and $10 will make you a producer. You'll appear in every video I make from now on, and be able to make direct Patreon requests to me. Thank you all so much for watching, and hey, we'll see what we get up to next time.